The decline of retro collecting. This is a topic I've been wanting to make a video about for a long time. I feel like retro video game collecting is still a fun and enjoyable hobby, but I believe things have definitely changed in the last decade. Now, before I start this video, I just want to say this is my personal opinion. Not everyone is going to feel the same or agree with everything I'm saying, but I can only tell you what experience being a retro collector for over 10 years. But I digress. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start the video. In the late 90s and early 2000s, video games was a booming market with a variety of companies and developers releasing games in all types of genres. Now, as a kid, acquiring new games wasn't such an easy task. I would only get new games for Christmas or my birthday, so I never really had a big collection. I don't think most people did back then. People would only buy video games they were interested in and had to make a decision on purchasing the game only by the cover art and a small description on the back of the box. Now, there were magazines and demo discs, but no YouTube gameplay videos or reviews back then. I remember as a kid going to friends' houses and they never really had a big video game collection either. It was mostly games they loved and games they had an interest in. Now, I must admit, I was one of those dumb kids that traded in an entire N64 collection for a PS1 and had no regret doing it, because back then it was all about playing the newest games and chatting it up with your friends in grade school. Now fast forward to today, and retro collecting is a huge market for resellers, scalpers, YouTubers, and everyone thinking their copy of Super Mario 64 is worth $1 million. But let's go back to 2013, because this is when I started seriously collecting video games as an adult and actually had the means to do so. Now, what really got me back into collecting was watching the YouTuber, The Angry Video Game Nerd. His shorts and hilarious bad game reviews were inspiring and made me want to have a game room just like his. At the time, game room tours were up and coming on YouTube, and I would sit there for hours and hours watching random people's game rooms on YouTube. I laced up my tennis shoes and went game hunting at my local pawn shops and Goodwills, looking for old video games to add to my small bedroom collection. It was a great time back then, and I would consider it almost like a golden era for collecting retro video games. There wasn't much competition, and you could go to any pawn shop or Goodwill garage sale and find tons of this stuff for cheap. I remember getting PS2 games for 50 cents to $1, and even finding loose discs for 25 cents. It was a marvelous time, but all good things must come to an end, I guess. But it actually stayed like this for a while. I probably built 80% of my collection this way, just saving a couple bucks and going to pawns and thrifts on the weekends, finding stacks of games for next to nothing. But over time, the games started appearing less and less, and the games they did have started increasing in price gradually. Now, during this time, collecting retro video games started becoming more mainstream, and YouTubers and eBays really started popping up during this time. Now, I'm not going to sit here and blame everything on these big YouTubers and reselling channels, but it really did create quite a demand for the retro video game market. It felt like every place I used to go and get games had only shovelware, and all the good games were priced ridiculously high, unfortunately. You could see the sun slowly setting on collecting, but the storm was yet to come, and everything was about to get 10 times worse. I think everyone remembers what happened in 2020, so the demand for video games skyrocketed like crazy. Classic titles like Super Mario Bros. Were selling for double to triple its actual value, and new consoles were scalped so high you couldn't even get your hands on one if you tried. This is what I consider the dark era for retro collecting, because you had no stores open, everything shifted online, and online stores like DK Oldies were on the rise. So now, where does that leave us in 2023? Have things kind of calmed down in the last 3 years? Retro games have started popping up again slowly, and sometimes I can still find a deal here and there. Now, I know you might not agree with what I'm saying, but in my opinion, there was definitely a decline in the hobby. Sometimes I feel like people are only buying games because of the potential profit they can make, not even buying the game to actually play it. I feel like the hobby has definitely changed in the last decade, but hoping that it can eventually come back to its original purpose, actually collecting and playing video games. So what's next for retro collecting and video games as a whole? I don't know, honestly. It seems like the industry is going all digital in the near future, and I don't really like the sound of that. but that's a topic for another video. But hey, if you like this video, be sure to leave a like below and comment your thoughts on the retro collecting scene. I would really appreciate a sub, and it would really help this channel out. But anyways guys, until the next video, this is GamePlug. Peace.